There's a sentence Jewish parents whisper to their children that others almost never say: money listens. It's a strange phrase, almost mystical, but the older I get, the more I realize it holds the secret to everything we call abundance. Because money, in their eyes, isn't cold or greedy. It's alive. It has a spirit. It carries the scent of your words, the weight of your emotions, and the intention behind every choice you make. Most people grow up hearing, "Be careful, money doesn't grow on trees." But in Jewish homes, the lesson is subtler. Respect it, and it will stay. This small difference changes everything. One creates fear, the other creates partnership. From the beginning, we are taught that wealth is not a prize, it's a responsibility. Something you're entrusted with, not something you chase. And that's the real reason Jewish parents speak differently about money. They don't speak about having, they speak about holding. Because to have is temporary, but to hold, that's eternal. They tell their children, "You don't own your blessings. You are only renting them from heaven." That belief shapes an entirely different relationship with prosperity, one that is built on humility and stewardship instead of hunger and pride. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to attract opportunity without forcing it, maybe it's because of what they say when no one is listening. So here's something I want you to do, right now. Comment below one sentence your parents or grandparents used to say about money. Don't overthink it. Just write the first one that comes to mind. Because in doing that, you'll uncover your invisible script, the story that has been shaping your financial destiny without you even knowing. Our words become contracts with reality, and some of us have been signing bad contracts for years. Jewish parents teach that the mouth is a gate. Open it carelessly, and you may invite lack. Guard it with wisdom, and you welcome abundance. It's not superstition, it's spiritual physics. So in this journey we're beginning, I want to show you not just how Jewish families earn wealth, but how they think and speak it into existence. Because before the coins, before the contracts, before the work, there are words. And those words create worlds. This isn't about religion. It's about rhythm. The rhythm between gratitude and growth, between giving and receiving. Every culture has its secrets, but this one is ancient, tested, and quietly powerful. By the time you finish this, you'll understand that money has ears, and it's been listening to you all along. But before we go further, there's something deeper I need to show you. Something that begins not with wealth, but with speech. In Hebrew, there's a sacred connection between words and things, between what is spoken and what comes into being. The language itself doesn't separate spirit from substance. To name something is to give it form. And that's why, in Jewish teaching, money doesn't begin in the wallet. It begins in the mouth. The Talmud says that the tongue holds the power of life and death. Every word is a seed, and once it leaves your lips, it grows roots in unseen soil. Jewish parents teach their children that if you speak with lack, lack will visit you. If you speak with gratitude, gratitude will multiply around you. Be careful, my grandfather would say, because angels don't understand sarcasm. To them, every word you utter is a command. That's why, when you enter a Jewish home, you rarely hear people saying, "I'm broke," or "I can't afford that." They might say, "It's not my priority right now," or "I'm learning to manage what I have." The shift seems small, but it rewires everything. The words broke and poor invite a spirit of finality, while words of growth invite motion. Even in business, Jewish wisdom treats speech as sacred currency. Deals are sealed with blessings, not only signatures. Children are taught that honesty in words attracts honest wealth. If your mouth lies, one rabbi said, your money will too. It's not moralism, it's metaphysics. Words shape energy, and energy shapes outcome. Modern psychology now echoes the same truth our ancestors whispered centuries ago. Language programs the subconscious. When you say, "I'm bad with money," your brain shuts the door to possibility. When you say, "I'm learning to handle wealth wisely," it starts searching for proof. Jewish parents simply never stopped believing that words carry matter, literally. And here's the part most people miss. It's not about speaking positive words to manifest things you want. It's about speaking truthful words that honor where you are. Denial is not faith. Jewish wisdom doesn't ignore the struggle, it redefines it. If you're in difficulty, say, I'm being trained for responsibility. Because struggle in Hebrew thought is a classroom, not a curse. That's the deeper spiritual economy. Words first, then wealth. In Yiddish, there's a saying, a good word warms 3 winters. That warmth is not metaphorical. It's a vibration, a shift, a light that changes how reality arranges itself around you. So before money flows, speech must flow rightly. And that's why, in the quiet corners of Jewish homes, parents teach their children the first law of blessing. Guard your tongue as you would guard your treasure. But there's one phrase, simple, harmless on the surface, that Jewish families never allow to be spoken inside their homes. It's a phrase so common that most people use it every day without realizing how dangerous it is. The phrase is, it's enough. At first, it sounds virtuous, even wise, a declaration of contentment in a world obsessed with more. But in Jewish tradition, those 2 words carry a subtle danger. They mark the boundary between gratitude and stagnation, between peace and paralysis. To say it's enough is to tell heaven that your cup is full, that no more should flow. My grandfather used to warn, when you say you have enough, you close the gates above. He learned that lesson the hard way. In his younger years, after a long struggle, he finally saved enough to open his own bakery. Business was good. One night, while counting the day's earnings, he sighed in relief and said aloud, "Now it's enough, I'm satisfied." 3 days later, a fire swept through the street and burned his shop to the ground. He didn't see it as punishment. He saw it as correction. He told me later, "I declared completion too early. I stopped my own blessing." It wasn't superstition. It was understanding. Words set invisible forces in motion. It's enough tells the universe to stop sending opportunities, lessons, and growth. It halts the dance between heaven and earth. Jewish wisdom never glorifies greed, but it also never confuses peace with passivity. True contentment is not about saying enough. It's about saying thank you. Gratitude is open-handed. It invites more. Satisfaction, when mixed with ego, can quietly shut the flow. When I was a child, I remember visiting a neighbor, an elderly man named Reuben. He lived modestly but always had a sparkle of life in his eyes. I once asked him how he managed to stay so joyful with so little. He smiled and said, "Little, my boy, I have enough for today, and tomorrow, I'll ask for more life to fill the rest." His enough was never a wall, it was a bridge. This is the distinction Jewish parents teach. Never mistake comfort for completion. The moment you say, "It's enough," the soul stops expanding. Every blessing we receive carries an invitation to grow, to serve, to give. When you freeze that motion, the light that sustains it dims. In Hebrew thought, the blessing that stops being shared starts to decay. It's why even the wealthy continue to give, to build, to teach. They understand that abundance is a living current. It must keep moving to stay pure. So the next time you feel tempted to say, "It's enough," pause. Replace it with "Thank you for this," and for what's still to come. Because in this wisdom, the goal is never to reach the end of growth. The goal is to stay open to the divine rhythm of receiving and becoming. And that's why Jewish parents teach their children a powerful replacement, a phrase of light and movement that keeps the gates of blessing open forever. The phrase is Baruch Hashem. It means blessed be God, but in Jewish homes, it means much more than that. It's a key, a heartbeat, a spiritual code that keeps the door of blessing open. Parents say it when something good happens, but also when things fall apart. If you ask a Jewish friend, "How are you?" they might smile and answer, "Baruch Hashem, I'm alive." Not as habit, as a reminder. Because every breath is a transaction with heaven, and every word of gratitude is an investment in the unseen. When my father lost his job years ago, I expected anger or despair. Instead, he sat at the table, folded his hands and whispered, "Baruch Hashem." I didn't understand. How can you bless God when everything's collapsing? He looked at me gently and said, because I'm being trusted with a new beginning. That day, I learned that gratitude isn't a reaction, it's a declaration. It tells the universe, I am still aligned with faith. Jewish parents weave this phrase into their children's speech early. Gratitude becomes a reflex, not a performance. Even small things, a warm meal, a safe trip, a new opportunity, all earn a quiet Baruch Hashem. It's not about denying hardship. It's about anchoring the heart in divine awareness even when life feels uncertain. In the Talmud, there's a teaching. Whoever says a blessing over the bad as over the good, perfects the world. Because to bless in darkness is to affirm light still exists. This is not passivity. It's spiritual strength. Gratitude shifts vibration, cleanses envy, and restores flow. Psychologically, this practice rewires the brain toward abundance. Studies show that consistent verbal gratitude reduces anxiety, improves creativity, and strengthens resilience. But Jewish parents didn't need research. They lived it. They understood that gratitude keeps the soul fluid, open, receptive. Like oil that softens rust, it keeps the heart ready for new miracles. So when they say Baruch Hashem, they aren't thanking God for everything that happens. They're thanking God through everything that happens. The difference is subtle, but eternal. One ends the story, the other keeps it alive. Try this. For the next 7 mornings before checking your phone or rushing into worry, whisper Baruch Hashem. Even if your life feels imperfect. Feel the weight lift slightly, like a window opening in a crowded room. You'll sense movement, clarity, breath. That's not imagination. That's alignment. Gratitude is the first law of divine economy. It doesn't multiply money directly. It multiplies capacity. It teaches the universe that you're ready to hold more light, more responsibility, more blessing. But as Jewish parents remind their children, gratitude alone cannot sustain prosperity. Blessing flows where movement exists. And after Baruch Hashem comes the second commandment of wealth, not to feel blessed but to move blessed. Movement, that's the second pillar. Jewish parents teach that wealth isn't built by what you earn, but by what you become while earning it. The Torah never glorifies stillness, it glorifies diligence. 6 days you shall labor, it says, and on the 7th you shall rest. Even rest, therefore, is a command, not to stop, but to renew the motion. From childhood, Jewish children are taught that work is holy. My father used to say, well, when you work with your hands, your soul gets involved. It wasn't about status or ambition, it was about rhythm. 6 parts effort, 1 part surrender. You work to honor creation, then you rest to remember who the Creator is. The balance is what keeps abundance sacred. One story that stays with me is of a tailor named Eli. He was known not just for his skill, but for his prayer before stitching each garment. Bless these hands, he would whisper, so they bring dignity to whoever wears this. Over the years, his small shop became a place of quiet miracles. Not because of business tricks, but because he infused movement with meaning. His work was his worship. Jewish parents don't raise children to chase luck. They raise them to trust process. They teach that every act done with integrity pulls invisible threads of blessing toward you. Work becomes an altar, not a punishment. Even failure in this view is sacred, a sign that heaven is rearranging your direction, not rejecting your effort. But there's a danger they warn against too: comfort. When people taste success, they tend to relax, to think they've made it. My grandfather used to joke, a crocodile that sleeps becomes a handbag. His humor had truth. The moment you stop learning, giving, or moving, the blessing begins to dry. Prosperity, like blood, must circulate. Neuroscience now supports what rabbis have said for centuries. The brain's reward system thrives on progress, not perfection. You feel alive when you're moving, creating, improving. That's why stagnation feels like sadness. It goes against your spiritual design. So in Jewish wisdom, movement isn't about chasing more, it's about honoring flow. Whether you're sweeping a floor or leading a company, Every task becomes holy when done consciously. In all your ways know him, says Proverbs, meaning, let every motion carry awareness of purpose. And when the Sabbath arrives, Jewish families stop, not to escape work, but to remember why they do it. That pause is the soul's inhale before the next week's exhale. Work and rest are not enemies. They are partners in divine rhythm. Wealth, then, is not built in the hours you labor, but in the spirit you bring to those hours. Because the universe doesn't reward exhaustion, it rewards alignment. But there's a third pillar, one even more foundational: the way Jewish parents teach their children to understand money itself, long before they ever earn it. Jewish parents don't wait for their children to grow up before teaching them about money. They begin early, often before the child even learns to count. Because for them, financial education isn't about arithmetic, it's about character. In many Jewish homes, there's a small box made of wood or tin placed somewhere visible. It's called a tzedakah box, the charity box. Before Shabbat, before school, before any celebration, a coin is dropped inside. Not because it's much, but because it trains the soul. A child learns that money isn't only for keeping, it's for flowing. That simple act carries a profound message. You are not the end of the blessing. You are the bridge. My mother used to say, if you can give a coin, you can one day give a house. I didn't understand what she meant until years later. Giving isn't measured by the amount. It's measured by readiness. When children learn that from the start, money loses its power to intimidate or define them. In Jewish culture, financial conversations are not taboo. They're part of life. Parents discuss savings, debts, donations, and risks openly at the dinner table. It's not about boasting or worrying. It's about education through transparency. A child who hears these discussions grows up without fear of money. It becomes a tool, not a ghost. Contrast this with many other homes, where money is either worshipped or avoided. Silence breeds confusion, and confusion breeds anxiety. Jewish parents understand that secrecy is the enemy of stewardship. If you cannot talk about something, you cannot master it. Children are also taught the emotional side of wealth. My father would say, never let money make you heavy. He meant that your spirit should remain lighter than your possessions. Because the moment your worth depends on what you own, you've already lost your balance. Education in this sense is a spiritual inheritance. The goal isn't to raise millionaires, but to raise wise custodians. The child learns to ask, what does this resource allow me to do? Who can it help? What purpose does it serve? Those questions form the roots of Jewish prosperity. Intention over possession. I remember once asking my teacher why we needed to learn about giving before we had anything. He smiled and said, because if you wait until you have, you'll never start. Wealth comes to the heart that already knows what to do with it. This is how the cycle begins. Small acts of giving create space for greater responsibility. And when that responsibility grows, humility must grow with it, because the moment you forget who the true owner is, everything you hold starts to slip through your fingers. That's why Jewish parents teach another lesson, one about pride, loss, and the subtle test hidden inside every blessing. Pride, that's the silent thief of blessing. In Jewish teaching, it's not failure that ruins a person, but the arrogance that follows success. Jewish parents understand this well, so they teach humility not as politeness but as protection. My grandfather used to tell a story about a man named Yosef, a businessman in our town who once rose from nothing. He worked hard, built a company, and for a time everyone admired him. But one day, after closing a major deal, he said at a community dinner, "I did it all myself." Within months, everything began to fall apart. Partners withdrew, clients disappeared, doors that had always opened began to close. When Yosef went to a rabbi to ask why, the rabbi simply said, "You made the mistake of removing God from your equation. Pride dries up the blessing." In Jewish wisdom, money is not a reward, it's a test. It reveals the state of your soul more than your skill. When you handle wealth with humility, You expand your capacity to hold more. When you handle it with pride, it becomes too heavy to carry. That's why Jewish parents constantly remind their children, remember who gave you the strength to succeed. They warn about ayin hara, the evil eye, not as superstition, but as a symbol of the danger of showing off. Flaunting your wealth doesn't just attract envy, it disturbs spiritual balance. The energy of your success must remain clothed in modesty, or it starts to leak away. True prosperity doesn't shout, it breathes quietly. Even in celebration, humility is woven in. When a Jewish family builds a new home, they often leave one small patch of wall unfinished, a symbolic reminder that perfection belongs only to God. It's a silent declaration, no matter how high I rise, I am still a servant. Psychologically, pride isolates. It convinces you that you're self-made, cutting you off from gratitude, community, and divine flow. Jewish parents guard their children from this illusion by constantly redirecting praise. If a child achieves something great, the response isn't "you're amazing," but "thank God for your effort." The child learns to hold pride in its rightful place, as a spark, not a fire. I once heard a rabbi say, "Pride and poverty are brothers, one leads to the other." It sounded harsh until I saw it unfold in life after life. When pride blinds you, you stop listening, learning, and giving, and the river of blessing stops too. So Jewish parents teach that humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself, it means remembering where your strength comes from. And when pride dissolves, something miraculous happens. Generosity begins to flow freely again, restoring balance to both the soul and the world. Because the truth is, abundance was never meant to stay in one pair of hands. And that leads to the fourth pillar, the one that keeps every blessing alive through the sacred act of circulation. Tzedakah, the act of giving, is not charity in Jewish tradition. It's justice. It means to do what is right, not simply to be generous. And this single principle explains why Jewish prosperity doesn't just accumulate, it circulates. Jewish parents teach their children that money, like water, becomes toxic when it stands still. It purifies only when it flows. In many homes, the tzedakah box sits by the door, near the light switches or the dining table. It's placed there intentionally, to remind you that before you leave, before you eat, before you rest, you give. Even a single coin keeps the current alive. When I was young, I once dropped my only coin into the box and complained, "Now I have nothing left." My mother smiled and said, "No, now you have room." I didn't understand then, but I do now. Giving creates space for more light to enter. The Torah teaches that God blesses the hand that opens easily. The one who gives with joy, says the Midrash, builds invisible bridges across heaven. Jewish parents repeat that lesson endlessly. You don't give because you're rich. You become rich because you give. Modern psychology might call it the abundance mindset. Economists might call it social trust. But spiritually, it's simpler. Tzedakah keeps energy in motion. Every coin given, every act of kindness, every hand extended. All of it tells heaven, I understand how this works. You can trust me with more. History proves this truth. Jewish communities scattered across continents survived and thrived, not because they hoarded wealth, but because they invested it in people, in education, hospitals, shelters, and synagogues. Prosperity wasn't personal, it was communal. Children saw that giving wasn't loss, it was legacy. I remember visiting my grandmother's small apartment. On her kitchen counter, she kept 2 envelopes, one labeled for me, the other for others. The second envelope was never empty. Sometimes when things got tight, she'd even move money from her envelope to the others. Why? I asked once. Because if I take care of his people, she said softly, he'll take care of me. The beauty of tzedakah is that it transforms the act of giving into a spiritual contract. You don't just release money, you release fear. And in that release, wealth finds its way back to you, reshaped and refined. Try it. Give one small thing every day for a week. A coin, a compliment, a piece of time. Watch how your energy shifts, how opportunities begin to unfold in unexpected ways. You're not buying blessings. You're keeping the current of creation alive. Because Jewish parents know this. Every coin you hold carries a story, but every coin you give carries your soul. And when you give freely, the universe never lets you run dry. But beneath all these principles, gratitude, work, humility, and giving, lies an even deeper truth, the spiritual mathematics of prosperity itself, the formula that explains why some hands multiply what they touch, while others lose it without knowing why. There's a sacred rhythm behind prosperity, what Jewish wisdom calls the mathematics of blessing. It's not about numbers or markets, but balance. Between speaking and listening, giving and receiving, effort and surrender. Jewish parents teach their children that money is not earned in isolation. It's the echo of how you treat people, how you use words, and how you hold light. The Torah says, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." Creation itself began with speech. Every world, physical or financial, begins the same way, with a word, a thought, a declaration. Money, my grandfather once said, is how light takes form. When you speak with gratitude, work with integrity, give with humility, and rest with faith, that light flows through you and takes shape as opportunity. The mistake many make is trying to separate the spiritual from the material. Jewish parents never allow that division. They teach that business, family, and faith are one continuous conversation. If you lie in business, you darken your spirit. If you bless at home, you brighten your path at work. The same current runs through both. That's why wealth, in Jewish thought, is never a reward. It's a responsibility. To whom much is given, says Deuteronomy, much will be required. The question is not, how much do you have? But what are you doing with what you've been trusted with? Children are taught early that money reveals the soul. It magnifies who you already are. If you are generous, you'll become more so. If you are fearful, fear will multiply. There's a Hasidic saying, when God gives you wealth, He's asking you to share His work. That means every transaction is sacred, not just in the synagogue, but in the marketplace, the home, the street. Your signature, your promise, your word, all of it adds to or subtracts from your spiritual account. Jewish parents explain this through stories, not sermons. A mother tells her child, when you buy something, bless the hands that made it. A father teaches, when you're paid, bless the hands that gave it. Because in the mathematics of blessing, every exchange either adds light or absorbs it. And when a person loses balance, when pride replaces gratitude, or greed replaces purpose, that light dims. The spiritual equation collapses. That's why the wise constantly recalculate, constantly realign. The formula is simple but profound. Gratitude plus integrity, plus movement, plus generosity, flow. Every time you apply it, life rearranges itself to support you. It's not magic, it's alignment with divine law. So Jewish parents raise their children not to chase wealth, but to mirror it, to become so attuned to blessing that prosperity cannot help but find them. And when that awareness matures, a final truth unfolds, one that shifts money from a topic of survival to a language of holiness, a way of speaking peace into every corner of your life. In the end, everything returns to words. Jewish parents know that the true measure of wealth is not what fills your hands, but what fills your mouth, the way you speak about what you have and what you hope for. Because every phrase you utter builds or breaks the bridge between you and your blessings. They remind their children, never say, I'm poor. Say, I'm preparing. Never say, I'm unlucky. Say, I'm learning to see opportunity. And above all, never say, I'm done. Because in the language of heaven, to stop growing is to stop living. A Jewish mother will whisper to her son before school, Baruch Hashem, may your words bring light today. A father will tell his daughter, remember, every coin is a messenger. Send it wisely. The wisdom passes quietly, generation to generation until it becomes instinct. Gratitude before ambition, dignity before desire, purpose before possession. When you live that way, money stops being a source of fear and becomes a sacred trust. A reminder that God believes you're capable of holding light responsibly. That's the essence of Jewish prosperity. Not having more, but being trusted with more. So as you finish this reflection, remember the code. Speak with faith. Work with integrity. Give with joy. Rest with reverence. Those 4 acts form a covenant, a silent agreement with the Creator that says, "You can rely on me to handle abundance with grace." And when you keep that covenant, you no longer need to chase wealth. It begins to recognize you. It finds its way into your life naturally, drawn to the peace within your discipline. So let me leave you with a simple ritual. Each morning, when you wake, say aloud, "Baruch Hashem, I am growing." Each night before sleep, say, "Thank you for trusting me with today." These words are not mere prayers, they are keys. They open unseen doors and remind the universe that you are awake, aware, and ready. And as tradition teaches, end every lesson with a blessing. May the Lord bless you and guard you. May His light shine upon you and grant you peace. If these words moved something in you, share them. Not for fame or numbers, but as a quiet act of tzedakah, the giving of wisdom. Send this message to 3 souls who might need to remember that their fortune begins in their mouth, not in their pocket. Because blessing, like money, only lives when it circulates. And what Jewish parents know, what they've always known, is that the greatest inheritance isn't gold or land. It's the way we speak about our lives. Now that you've heard their secret, carry it forward. And in the next reflection, we'll explore another mystery, why some blessings seem delayed, and how to call them back.